All rise. The Science Court is now in session. The Honorable Rita Book presiding.
Order! Order! Order in the court! Be seated. Bailiff, what do we have here today?
Docket number STU-PID-001. The People versus Flat Earth.
Ah, yes. Flat Earth. The defendant has been accused of the crime of being stupid and has entered a plea of not guilty and has further waived his right to a trial by jury of his peers. He has opted for a bench trial. I see we have counsel standing ready. Counsel for the defense, state your name for the record.
John the Morgile here.
Counsel for the prosecution, state your name for the record.
Logical troglodyte, Your Honor.
I see the bone you're chewing on is the lunar eclipse of January 21st of this year. Counsels, which one of you would like to begin?
So what we saw for the eclipse was the shadow, allegedly, of the Earth coming up. Well, it was more like this. We'll get it right. From my perspective, it was sort of coming in this direction. This shadow, allegedly, of the Earth was coming up this way. And then what we saw really took me by surprise, but the shadow then proceeded to come back down this way.
Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Morgile is presupposing that what he remembers is what everyone else saw. Since a person's memory can be colored by personal bias, I would like to enter People's Exhibit A, actual time-lapse video footage of the event.
Proceed, Counselor.
Here we have the moon entering the Earth's shadow, exactly as Mr. Morgile presented. But notice the apparent retreat of the Earth's shadow on the moon's surface. It is not beginning at the 11 o'clock position, as stated, but at the 7 o'clock position. As you can clearly see, Your Honor, the defense does not have his facts straight.
Objection sustained.
So, according to this model here, which is the accepted standard model, the moon would have had to go into the shadow of the Earth and then regress back the way that it came.
Objection, Your Honor. A blatant attempt to introduce a red herring, Your Honor.
Can you explain that, Counselor?
Yes, ma'am. The defense knows full well that the moon reversing course is an absolute impossibility. It's simply trying to distract us from the real facts. If the moon had regressed its path, the apparent retreat of the shadow would have started at the 5 o'clock position, not the 11 o'clock position as stated by Mr. Morgile, or the 7 o'clock position as shown in the video evidence.
Objection sustained.
And we'll say that the shadow of the Earth is allegedly transiting the moon as the moon travels in to meet with the peculiar pinpointer of a shadow cast by the Earth from the sun upon the moon. When using a single light source and a single obstruction to cast a shadow from that light source, nowhere in nature can you demonstrate the shadow tapering off into a point, getting proportionally smaller with distance from the obstructing object.
Objection, Your Honor. The defense is refusing to acknowledge key pieces of evidence. He does not seem to understand that this diagram is a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional space. The sun is not a single point of light. It is a three-dimensional sphere in which light photons are emitted in all directions. Furthermore, the defense would have us believe that either A, the Earth has no atmosphere, or B, the Earth's atmosphere plays no part in the lunar eclipse. To better explain this, I offer the People's Exhibit B, expert testimony from Goddard Space Flight Center.
The moon passes through the shadow cast by the Earth, causing it to look extremely unusual for a short period of time. If we were to look at what happens from space during an eclipse, it would go something like this. First, the moon passes through what's called the penumbra, where the sun's light is only partially obscured. This results in only a slight darkening of the moon. As the moon continues along its path, however, it enters what's called the umbra, where all direct light from the sun is blocked. But if the sun is blocked, why does the moon turn red? When light from the sun goes by the side of the Earth, it passes through a long and thick layer of Earth's atmosphere. Shorter wavelengths of sunlight, like blue, are scattered by the atmosphere, so by the time the light has finished its trip to the moon, more of the longer wavelengths, like red, are left over. On the Earth, the same thing happens at sunset as the ground you stand on gradually passes into night.
Obviously, Your Honor, the defense's whole argument is based on logical fallacies, while trying to appeal to his own authority, ignoring the fact that he has no scientific credentials and lacks a basic understanding of science.
This whole umbra-penumbra theory completely contradicts and goes against Eratosthenes' method of allegedly measuring the circumference of the Earth, using, of course, the very high technology of the ancient Greeks, being a hole in the ground and a stick in the ground, by measuring the shadow angle of the sun at 2 locations on the equinox in order to allegedly, use spherical trigonometry, assuming that the Earth is a sphere to begin with, to mathematically prove that the Earth is a sphere.
The umbra and penumbra is not a theory, but established scientific fact, as evidenced by our expert witness and the fact that we have lunar eclipses in the first place. Furthermore, Your Honor, the defense would have us believe that since Eratosthenes was a Bronze Age man with Bronze Age technology, his findings and arguments are therefore invalidated. And yet, the defense is trying to defend an idea that came from the late Stone Age and early Bronze Age era.
Defense Counsel Morgile, I caution you against straying from the facts. This is a science court, and I will not tolerate any more logical fallacies.
So which is it, Globers? Are you going to stick with Eratosthenes' method of measuring the alleged circumference of the ball Earth? Or are you going to go with the umbra-penumbra phenomenon theory? Because you can't have both.
Objection, Your Honor. The defense is attempting a false dichotomy. Why can't we have both? There are variables in play for the lunar eclipses that were not in play with Eratosthenes' experiments. So yes, we can have both. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. The people's case has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecution rests.
Mr. Morgile, do you have anything to say regarding this latest attempt at logical fallacy? Mr. Morgile, the prosecution has rested. Do you have any further relevant evidence? Since there's nothing further to add, I hereby find the defendant, Flat Earth, guilty of being stupid. I hereby sentence you to a lifetime of debunking and comedic parody. Mr. Morgile, I hereby find you in contempt of court for your continued use of logical fallacies and sentence you to 6 months of remedial science classes. Court adjourned.